Hi, my name's Mick Grucock and I'm a UK-based self-taught amateur bowyer, and in this series of videos I hope to show you how you can make your very first wooden bow. Perhaps the most puzzling challenge faced, especially but not uniquely, by beginner bowyers is where on earth do you find wood that is suitable to make bows. But first, let me tell you, you're not alone in facing this problem. So let's have a look how I solved the problem of finding that seemingly rare and mysterious stuff called bowwood. First, let's be clear what is needed. For an adult-sized target or hunting bow, or indeed my favourite type of bow, the medieval style longbow, you need a piece of wood between 5.5 and 7 feet long and maybe around about 2.5 to 3 inches in diameter. Rather like this piece of hazel. The ideal piece of timber would have been dried carefully, which is called seasoning, and be free from splits, twists, knots and damage. But when you're starting out, this is exactly the kind of wood that appears as rare as a unicorn and just as hard to find. I made my first bow, in fact this, from a green, that is, freshly cut, not seasoned, ash sapling. 2 years ago when I first started making bows, I really had no idea from where to find seasoned bow woods, but I did know how to find hundreds upon hundreds of ash saplings. Exactly like this. This bow gave me confidence, a priceless commodity when you're starting out bow making. So I advise this: don't look for unicorns. Look for something that you can find. Look for green wood and use that. If you're in the UK, I suggest you seek out ash or indeed hazel. But let me say this: green wood will not give you a fast bow, it will not give you a high draw weight bow, and it will certainly not give you a long lasting and durable bow. But what it will give you is experience, and every minute of that is priceless. And I made my next self bow also from green wood, but this time I experimented. I cut a hazel branch, shaped from it a bow and dried it rapidly, and from that I made an 86 pound draw weight English longbow. In fact, this bow here. As a bow, it's rubbish, but it was, and it still is, an absolute treasure to me. So whereabouts do you find green wood? Make contact with local tree surgeons, timber yards, forestry stations, commercial gardeners, anyone who works with trees. Tell them what you're looking for and ask politely for help in finding it. You see, even in countries with higher levels of forest and woodland protection, there is always work taking place on trees. Pruning, felling, thinning saplings. Be resourceful. Just go and ask. So tip 1 is this: start making contacts. Yes, it does take time, but it will bear fruit. Start making contacts, be resourceful and get yourself some green wood. After making some green wood bows, I then wanted to work on some high quality bow wood. In fact, I wanted to work on yew. But once again, I ran into problems. Where to find wood? And if I did find some yew, I had to wait 2, maybe 3 years for it to dry and season and be ready for bow making. That's an awful long while to wait when you're impatient and want to start getting on with making a really good quality bow from seasoned wood. So once again I had to be resourceful, and I suggest you do the same. Join bow making and traditional archery Facebook groups, check out eBay, make contact with local bowyers, bushcrafters, foresters, archery groups. There are some very good people out there, and you might be surprised how much bow wood changes hands for nothing. And my resourcefulness and perseverance paid off, because I found a supplier of bow woods in Germany, and I was lucky enough to be able to afford to ship a piece of yew back to the UK. And from that piece of yew I made myself this, a 100 pound draw weight yew war bow. So tip 2 is this: seasoned bow wood is available if you know where to look, and sometimes it's much less expensive than you think, and sometimes it really does cost nothing. So be resourceful, get out there, get looking and see what you can find. Now, I do confess to have access to woodland from which I can take a small amount of wood, but in this entire wood there is not one single tree that I'd call prime bow wood. But there certainly are a lot of trees. So if you are in the position of being able to harvest your own wood, but the locality that you're in does not support prime bow woods, why not do as I did and start experimenting with lesser bow woods, woods that you would not imagine would produce bows. It's challenging. I've used blackthorn, I've used hawthorn, I've used elder. Every single one challenged me, but every single type of tree that I tried, although it may not have made a brilliant bow, taught me a great deal. So don't give up if you can't find properly seasoned, high quality and renowned bow woods. Go out and find some hazel, some elm, some alder, some hawthorn, anything, and try and use it to make a bow. It will teach you way more than you think. So what exactly am I looking for when I'm out in the woods searching out for a piece of bow wood? Let's go for a walk, see whether we can find some ash or some hazel that looks suitable for bow making, and I'll show you how I take it down and then what I do to it afterwards to get it ready for seasoning, hopefully for future bow building. First I'm looking for some ash, but I don't want to season it for too long. This is a wonderful mature ash tree, but not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for can be found here, where the ash drops its seeds. So some ash seeds have fallen in this blackthorn thicket, and around here it's so dense that it's forced these saplings to grow very straight. First, notice the bark on this tree. It's completely smooth. Compare it to that of a mature ash tree, which is completely craggy. So different you'd hardly think they were the same tree. The stave I'm looking for is going to be for a beginner. I want them to be able to make a 20 to 25 pound longbow from it. So this is perhaps a little too thick. So I'm going to choose this one here. It's about 2 inches in diameter. There are no side branches up to about 6.5 to 7 feet. There's no abrasions on the bark. It looks a nice stem of ash. It won't make a big bow. This will be a beginner's stave, maybe 20-25 pounds draw weight at most, a flattish belly and a rounded back, a very simple stick bow, but good practice. This is the kind of thing you should be looking for to make your first green bow. Now, tree conservation is a really important subject. This entire woodland is dedicated to just that, but within a bow's length of where I am now there are 25 more ash saplings just like this. Some of them are straight, some of them are not so, but some will get through the canopy and produce mature, lovely ash trees. So this area won't miss this small ash sapling, so I have no worries about taking it down. There is a distinct bend in the tree here. It's where a branch was broken off. I'm going to cut it here. That's about an 8-foot long stem. So this is my ash stave and this is firewood. So before I show you what I'm going to do with that ash stave, let me show you this. This is hazel that's been coppiced. Now, coppiced hazel, that is when it's been cut off at the base, throws long straight shoots, and some of these are perfect for bow making. Do you remember that long straight hazel stave I showed you earlier? Well, this is it, and this is the tree that produced it. And here's another one. In 5 to 8 years time, this will be a lovely straight hazel bow stave. I want my ash stave to dry fairly quickly, so before I take it back to the workshop, I'm going to carefully, using a knife, strip the bark. I'm just removing the outer bark of this ash stave. If you do the same, be careful you don't cut all the way through the bark and into the wood itself. If you do that, you might damage the fibres, and that could cause a bow to break. Here is my ash stave, now stripped of its bark. Let's take it back to the workshop and get it ready for seasoning. So here is my ash stave, now ready for the few little jobs I have to do before I put it away to dry. I'm wearing gloves simply because it's cold. But if you're taking your own wood down, do make sure it's not toxic. If it is, leave it alone or take the proper precautions. My first job is to seal the ends of the stave. In this case, I've used wood glue. You can also use wax or paint. The purpose of this is to stop the ends drying more quickly than the rest of the stave, because if they do, they're very likely to split. And my final job is to write on the stave the species, the date it was felled, and the weight. The latter is really useful when it comes to monitoring the weight loss of this stave, as it gradually loses moisture. So that's my ash stave now ready for seasoning. It'll go indoors, be lain across some boards and put in an even temperature with a good airflow around it and across it. And I'll monitor its progress by continually weighing it and recording on the stave the weight each time I do so. If you buy or are given a stave, it might not look like this. It might look like this. This is a piece of blackthorn. The bark is still on. You can see that it's been split from a much bigger log. You might ask why I leave the bark on some staves and not on others. For me, it's just down to personal choice. I do like the look of a bow that's still got the bark on it. Just look at this. This is a blackthorn longbow made from a sister stave to the one I've just shown you. And look at this lovely contrast between the bark and this honey-coloured wood. Really nice. Doesn't always work. The bark doesn't always stay on. Sometimes it pops off during tillering. But it's really worth having a go at a bark on bow. So those are a few insights into how I solve the problem of where to find wood from which to make wooden bows. I wish you great success. Resourcefulness is key. Go out, look hard, and you will find something from which to make a bow. See you next time.